that's better. That's better. All right. My name is Frayne Lewis. I'm Deputy Commissioner of Programming here at DCASE, and on behalf of Mayor Brandon Johnson and Commissioner Kenyon Merritt, we welcome you. Chicago is honored to serve as the 2026 international host for International Jazz Day. Reflecting this city's global cultural leadership, these citywide events highlight Chicago's ongoing commitment to celebrating while supporting jazz and the broader arts community. Jazz is deeply rooted in Chicago's history. I need to say that again. Jazz is deeply rooted in Chicago's history, shaped by generations of artists and communities who continue to influence the genre. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dan Seif from the Herbie Hancock Institute of Jazz. Dan?
Thank you. I'm Dan Seif. I'm the West Coast Director of the Herbie Hancock Institute of Jazz. Happy International Jazz Day. Thank you all for being here. We have a phenomenal masterclass for you on how to listen to jazz with an incredible pianist who is the host of Live from Emmett's Place, a very popular series online, and the Master Legacy series. Yeah, you guys know that. He's a Mack Avenue recording artist, and I first met him years ago when he was in the Institute's International Jazz Piano Competition. He's joined today by the bassist and drummer from the current Hancock Institute of Jazz Performance, Yerin Kim, and Mailu Rakatanana Hari. Please welcome the incredible Emmet Cohen.
Thank you very much. It's so nice to be here at International Jazz Day in Chicago. Last year we were in Abu Dhabi, and so this was an easier commute from New York for sure. And it's just awesome to be a part of this great event. And I said I would be here and talk a little bit about jazz and what we do. And I know it just means a great deal to me that there are new musicians on the stage that I've never met before. We just met this very instant, which is an example in itself of how to listen to this music, whether you're behind one of these instruments or whether you're in the audience. And so I think the first thing I'll say is that that over all the years that I've been doing this, I've learned a lot about theory. I've learned a lot about history. I've learned a lot about the different ways that this music is played. But all those things, I think, serve a greater purpose in music, and that's about the connection between human beings who are listening, who are playing, who haven't even been introduced to this music before. It's all about the humanity. And I think if there's one thing I'll impress upon you today, listening to jazz is to search inside yourself and honor your own humanity. And so we're going to start off with playing some music, and we're going to come together as three people who haven't played before together as a band. They play together fairly often, I guess. But it's my pleasure to join you, and we're going to open our ears and open our hearts and see what we come up with, and then from there break it down a little bit, maybe take some questions and have some participation. So thank you for coming out today. We're going to play an old jazz classic for you. This is called On Green Dolphin Street. Let's hear it from Milo on the drums and Yadin on the bass. So first, I just love to say that we just met. We hardly just said some pleasantries, just hello. Found out that Milo's from France and Yadin's from South Korea, and I'm from here. Well, not Chicago, but basically New York, New Jersey. I was born in Miami, so 3 different people from 3 completely different places on the planet coming together to make music. And we couldn't look any different or you know, on first glance, you'd be like, well, how did those people come together? How were they able to get on stage, just meet, and be able to play that song in that way? And maybe I'll open it up a little bit. Is there any thoughts about that? Anything that people heard or identified or think, or any questions right off the bat? And maybe we turn it into a bit of a conversation. Okay, we have mutual reciprocity. I like that. And that makes me think of what you need for that, which is a shared language and a shared sense of respect, right? And these things right here, ears to listen. And so what does it mean to share a language? I think that's a really important thing. So what are some of the things that made you fall in love with jazz? I'm wondering.
Oh, that's a good question. Wow.
Some of the first records that you heard. I want to play the bass.
I was watching YouTube of John Petitucci playing bass, so I grabbed the bass. Yeah.
So, did you learn some records from there?
Yeah, like John Petitucci's first album. I forgot the name. Sorry.
Anybody else too?
Anybody else? Of course, Miles Davis. Yeah. Coltrane. Yeah.
So I asked how you got into music and jazz. She said YouTube. So it used to be people would go to the record store and buy records and stuff like that. And I'm partial to YouTube because I play a lot on YouTube. So I think that's awesome, but there are so many ways to find the music and get into it. But she said she heard John Patitucci, and then it led her to Miles Davis and John Coltrane. And so that's very interesting that you say Miles Davis, because the piece we played was on Green Dolphin Street, and that's a piece that Miles Davis played almost his whole career. So when I'm trying to find something that we might be able to share together, it's a great place to start with something that Miles Davis may have played. And I'm wondering about your early experiences that made you want to study jazz.
Yeah, I would say same. Listening to Miles Davis, John Coltrane, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, just seeing some musicians improvise was kind of magical to me, and I just wanted to understand. And I just needed that to figure this out. And I think, it takes forever you never really figure it out. But yeah, one of the first records I listened to, I think, was Kind of Blue, I guess, which is pretty classic. But
Okay, so in order to get into the music, you have to find some inspiration. So that's the first thing. Then this masterclass is really about how to listen to jazz and how to get into music in general. I think that it's really important to find something that you really identify with. And so when I see, Herbie Hancock was just on the stage before us. When I hear him play or see him play, I'm like, wow, that sounds amazing. It looks cool. What he's communicating is something I can identify with. So I think we're always looking for something we identify with in the music that we can latch onto and say, like, wow, that's language. That's reciprocity. That feels like mutual respect. It feels like people are doing something together, and that's what we tried to portray up here. I think is we're going to play together for the first time. We're going to listen, and we're going to play within the normal format. So I'm sure there's many jazz fans in this room and people watching this live stream, but there's a form, just like there's a form for when you meet people for the first time. You might say, "Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. My name is such and such." When we play in this setting, it's almost the same. I said maybe I'll start off with an introduction, just to get the sonic landscape happening, to get you guys to focus the room. Then maybe we'll play a little bit together in a rubato sense, where we're just creating sound. And so we started off our first notes together with just some soundscapes, just to see how we're listening, to see how we're playing, in the space together, what the sound is like, what the choices are like. And then, okay, we'll bring it into time. I played the melody. I took a solo. I handed it off to Yareen for a bass solo. Then we did a little trading, which means I'll play a phrase, and then the drums will play a phrase. And I started off with 8-bar phrases, and then I pared it down to 4-bar phrases, and then to 2-bar phrases. And we didn't talk about that before. I just kind of, threw it at you, and you were right there on it. Then we played the melody out and kind of wrapped it up with a bow. So that's a normal form of how it might go to play this music. And when you listen to Miles Davis records, you definitely hear that form as well. And so that's a great starting place to come together, to be able to understand how to play or to listen to this kind of music. And for me, once you learn these forms, then you can start to deconstruct them a little bit and do different things and start to go away from the form. But it's almost like you got to learn the rules before you break the rules. And that's a very human thing, I think, in anything that we do. So that was a little bit. Is there anything that anybody heard in the room that happened, that we played together, that sounded cool or sounded mysterious, or any feelings, any emotions that came through in the music? Yes. Okay, so that's a great observation. We were playing, and all of a sudden something happened. Yorin smiled at me. Do you remember what that moment was? Not at all. Not at all. What do you think it was? Like during the rubato section, or? Okay. Okay, so I do remember what happened. So like, as musicians on stage, we want to be as aware as possible. We want to be on our instruments and be focused, but we also want to be thinking of the story. So that was a really interesting moment in the story that we just created, where she turned to me for the first time in the song, looked at me, and there's a way at the end of the form, after we play the melody and we're going to the solos, in that song in particular, where we have a tag. And when you listen to Miles Davis, they'll play the tag. And so we're debating whether or not to play the tag. And obviously there's no discussion before, so it's all sound and it's all look. And she was looking down, so she didn't see me. And then I was going, right to the piano. This is what the tag sounds like. So now we rehearsed it, we got it perfect. But the first time we played it, she was like, I don't know if he's gonna play the tag again, or if he's gonna go right into the solos. So she guessed that I would go right into solos because I had already played a tag to get into the song. And I guessed that she was gonna go to the tag because I had done it once, so I was probably gonna do it twice. And so we had this moment of like, oh, what's gonna happen? And we guessed the opposite things. And so then it ended up being funny, I think, and you thought too, because that's a part of the humanity of the music. Like, you think someone's gonna do something and you're like, let's go there, and then they do the opposite thing and you're like, oh, I should have known, but there was no way to know. And it's like that every day in life. And that's why I think that jazz is so interesting and cool to listen to, especially because you never know what's gonna happen. It's just like everyday life. You wake up in the morning and you have no idea what your day is gonna. You think you know what your day is gonna be like, or what's gonna happen, but you have no idea what the fates allow, what's gonna happen. So that's a perfect example of like of a real human moment in the music, and that's why I really love these moments like that. Like, you think it's a mess up, but then it's like, okay, how are we gonna get out of that? And life and jazz and improvisational music, it's always gonna be full of things that seem like they're messing up. And the best part of jazz, when you listen to it, is the recovery. You know, we all falter, we all make mistakes, but how do we recover? And I thought we had a really nice recovery, and we found out, okay, here's the top of the form again. And then it was like, oh, we can laugh it off, we can smile. No one got hurt, I don't think. No one got hurt, and then we landed right back on the top of the form again. And it just makes me really think about how when you're playing at your best, you're trying to make everybody else sound better, and you're trying to cover up any mistakes that anyone might make by smoothing out the edges and making it be like, oh, it's okay. You know, I don't know whether it was your fault or my fault or both, but here we are, we're gonna be okay. And it's a really, really, really great metaphor for life, right? Yes, sir. Yeah, okay, so the title of this masterclass, I've also found out 5 minutes ago, was how to listen to jazz. And yeah, that's a big part of it. I was thinking I would bounce a little bit back and forth between how we listen to jazz and how you can listen to jazz. So one of my favorite parts about this kind of music is that you could know everything in the world about it. You could know about tags, you can know about form, you can know about everything. You can know about the history, you can know what date Louis Armstrong recorded Weatherbird with Earl Father Hines, and you could study every little piece of the music. There's that kind of person on one side of the spectrum, and then there's a person that never has heard this kind of music before, ever, and is just walking into the room, and you could be the most knowledgeable person or the most naive person about the music and enjoy it just the same. Because the music has that human element, and it's supposed to touch the soul. It's supposed to be about the sounds and the energy. And this music is very, very energy based. So right now we're getting into the technical weeds. But are you asking that you might want to know a little bit more about the energetic components? Okay. Yeah. So there's no one way to go to a museum and stand in front of the painting, and enjoy the painting, right? Or you know, hopefully, at its best, a piece of music or a band playing or a piece of artwork or a great film, it'll act like a giant mirror so that you can see yourself through the lens. And that's what great art does. That's what great jazz does. It opens a portal into another universe where you can see yourself, where you can feel yourself, or maybe you can travel time a bit and be transported to another era, or you can feel something that you haven't felt, or you can access a memory that's deep inside, and you just never know what it's going to be. And so when you approach this music, especially with an open heart, you can really be surprised at just how just how diverse of reactions you can have as a listener. And so, what side of the spectrum are you on? Knowledgeable. Okay, so you could be right in the middle. Okay, well, I think like when we play, we're thinking about all those technical things, but we're also thinking about all the human elements in it too. So we talked a little bit before about how we might go about playing this if we were just thinking about the emotional aspects of it. So what if we went to go to the solo section of this song and we wanted to make it as mysterious as possible, like almost like we're setting a scene for a movie or something, and we're still gonna use the form that we were on before, but we're gonna really like tread lightly, and we're gonna really paint a scene of mystery, like we don't know what's gonna happen. Okay, so let's go right on the top. So, and how did that feel?
It was very mysterious. Yeah. I didn't know like what was happening. Yeah, it was cool though.
It was cool. She said it was cool, but it was also a mystery to us even. So sometimes as a musician, you get lost yourself, and I think we were all a little bit like lost. We were all kind of on different pages, and what I was trying to show at the end was us getting back on the same page after that. So that's an example of throwing out all the notes and rhythms and all that stuff, and just saying like, let's just focus on an emotion or an energetic theme in the music. And so that can, and the more you play together as a band, the more you can get to those themes in different ways. And so we're very new playing together. This band has only been together for about 15 minutes. So, so after about 15 years, we'll really be able to paint those scenes. And when I think about where we were being mysterious, and then we wanted to bring it to the next emotion, we wanted to move the story forward. It really comes down to tension and release, and how we're going to build that tension or build that mystery and then kind of release it. So why don't we do 8 more bars of the mystery and then kind of like release the tension into like a more steady swing, which maybe the emotion might be like more of a comfort. So we're gonna go from like an uncertainty into a now we know the direction. So just 8 bars of mystery, and then we're gonna work on our resolution. And this is something that when you practice with musicians, sometimes you can talk about music and be like, when we do this, then we can go here, and then the more you start to do that together, then that becomes a part of your language. And the more it becomes part of your language, then you learn the structure and then you break it down. So maybe Milo's, after we do this 5 times on 5 different gigs, Milo's like, no, I'm not gonna release there anymore. I'm gonna delay the release now and see what you guys do. And so it becomes this ongoing conversation. So let's do 8 bars into a release and see how that feels. So all of a sudden we just created a way that we want to play together. And so once you learn the language of how Miles Davis did it and how John Coltrane did it and how Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington and all these other great luminaries, that can be an example of how to play together. And then you can feel the freedom to create your own way of playing together. And when you back to your point about how to listen to jazz, I think when you start to listen to records and start to listen to the greats and then go out to hear live music, then you can start to identify what the musicians are doing and how it feels to you, and you can start to make your own observations about what the emotional weight of the music is. Does anyone have any questions about what we're talking about? We got one in the back first, and I'll get back. Yeah, that's you. So the question is, how does it feel initially to play with one another having never met before? What's the initial reaction?
I think it's great. It's like meeting someone. It's like a language, so it's interesting. And you also, as a drummer, I think I also need to focus even more on listening to everyone to make sure everyone's to make sure we're together, everyone's on the same page, and to pay attention to everything that happens and to respond. And yeah, I think it feels great to me. It's like, meeting someone, yeah.
Okay. Obviously he's like amazing player. So right now I just followed him. So yeah, it went really well, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really like both of those observations. One was more like concrete, like, okay, there's a musician here that's a little bit old. Yep. So I'm about 11 years older. So whenever I play with someone 10 years old, a decade older than me, I usually see what they're gonna do first. So there's a very respectful culture in this music, where if I play with someone who's older than me, I'm probably going to listen to what they have to say, which is a really good example of how it should be in our culture, which oftentimes it's not. You want to be able to listen to the stories of people who are older, who are more experienced, and take your cues from them. So I thought that was a really practical thing. There's also the element of where we are in this instrumentation. So I play the piano, and in the history of piano, bass, and drums, the piano player is usually the leader. So it's piano trio, right? So there was a lot of times when they were deferring to me or listening to me, and I picked up on that right away, and I decided that, okay, I'm really gonna lead, and I'm gonna start the song, and then I'm gonna bring it in. I'm gonna choose the tempo, and then I'm gonna decide when it's time for everyone to solo, and then I'm also gonna decide when the song's over. And when people don't know each other that well, then it really helps to have someone leading the charge, especially in front of an audience that's being live streamed and going to be recorded forever. Someone's got to step up and lead. If we're in a practice room and no one's ever going to hear this again, maybe we might be a little, So also that brings a great point where it's really circumstantial. The music, like, where are we? Who are we playing for? We're playing for a masterclass where we know we need to speak. Are we going to play 10-minute solos? Probably not. And so an awareness is a really, really important part of being a musician. And I think it's a really important part of being a listener too, to be aware of the sounds that you're hearing, how they're coming at you, and everything in between. I think there's a lot to deal with in there. But my first reaction of these musicians is that they're very well studied, and that they have great time feels, and that I should trust their decisions. So there are moments where I came in and I wanted to listen to what they were doing and respond to it too. So it's almost like this conversation that we're having, even though I might be the leader. So that was the initial reaction of how we played together. I hope that helps. There was one in the back. Yeah. Yeah, you. Yeah, so the question is when you go to a concert and you can get lost and not understand what's going on, but the musician's a really famous one and you're supposed to, you're supposed to like it. I mean, this is something that happens quite often. And I think that in the history in this music, there's been a push and pull between entertainment and artistry and the balance of those two things. And if I think about someone like John Coltrane, like there's basically no entertainment factor. He just plays his horn, and it's just coming from inside. There's a connection to the higher spirit, but it can be entertaining, but his intention is not to entertain. And when you think of someone like Dizzy Gillespie or Fats Waller, those guys are real entertainers. Jimmy Heath, who I play with, and those guys are like laughing on stage, they're talking to each other, they're like doing funny things, and the music can be a little more accessible. And so when you're thinking about listening to jazz, I think it's important to know who you're listening to and where they come from and what's important to them in that moment. I think knowing about the musician can really, really help to give you that background, and it can set your expectations. So if you go see Sun Ra, the music is going to be crazy, and you have to be ready in that. You can be ready. You can prepare yourself to be ready for that and open to that. If you're going to see Jonathan Baptiste, for instance, you're going to be entertained, and depending on where you come from, musicians from New Orleans, they're sometimes more likely to entertain than musicians from Chicago. I don't know. But it doesn't really matter where you're from. It just matters like where your heart is. And so I think that it's just an important thing to realize when you're listening to the music that there's different ways to access it, and there's different levels of feeling connected to the music, and that's okay. You shouldn't feel any certain type of way if you went to a concert and saw a great musician and it didn't resonate. It just meant it wasn't for you in that moment, or it means it's a little more work for you to like tune in, and it's not going to be as easy, and that's okay too. And it's just like life. Certain people are really easy to meet and connect with, and other people, man, you got to meet them 20 times before they remember your name. But once you do, wow, you realize what an interesting person they are, and you start to develop that. And so it's open-ended. One of my favorite things that I hear when people come to see us play is, I thought I hated jazz, but I really loved it, what you did tonight. And that's a really common thing to hear. And I think that people also get the wrong idea about what something is, and it becomes solidified, and it's really hard to backtrack on that. And so, part of my mission personally as an artist is to make people love the music, to make it accessible to play maybe a shorter song followed by a longer song. Maybe then the energy builds up, and then maybe it drops down. So I'm always thinking about like how to make it like exciting for the listener. And not all musicians, that's not their prerogative. So for me, I always think about that, but it's not something you have to think about. But then if you think about trying to build an audience and wanting people to come back to your shows, and people want to be like, wow, I really liked hearing that guy. I'm going to tell my friend about it. You should go hear that. You should go hear that woman play, something like that. that's where it starts to get interesting. So when you're building your career, you want to play stuff that's probably more accessible. And then when you get to that legend status, or you get into a certain place, then you can start being a little more experimental. But the honest truth is that we live in a short form content world and society. So everyone all day is looking at Instagram Reels and TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and they're used to 60 seconds and being on to the next thing, if that. And so then you go and sit down and listen to a 15-minute song that is played by a jazz ensemble. That's asking a lot of people in this time. So I think that it's important for musicians to realize who they're playing for, what the time in society is, and how to help people listen to the music. And so it's a goal of mine to really try to connect with audiences, and that sometimes means playing shorter or playing more exciting, or matching an intensity of the world. And this world is really intense, and also finding your own way to portray the beauty in it too, which is important. We have one in the back over there. Okay, come on. For what? A chord? Which chord? Is that a test? Does that count? Did I pass the test? So, I mean, that's the way that people listen too. They really know the chords, and they really know how to get from one thing to another. And so when you listen to music, you're listening for pretty chords. Obviously, you listen to for that stuff, and you're like, you must have perfect pitch because you're asking for. You must. Okay. Well, you're close. So that's another varying degree of like, and a lot of musicians play for other musicians to listen to, and that's another thing that's quite common in the music. Does anyone have any more questions? I know we have only a couple more minutes. How about in front? Yeah, how do you connect intimately with music, and what is the story that you intend to tell? And how do you do that with music that has lyrics, but you're instrumentalist playing those lyrics? I think a lot of the most famous classical musicians, they say never perform a piece of music you're not in love with. And you want to fall in love with the music that you're playing, and you want to choose repertoire that means something to you. And just because a song is sad doesn't mean that you have to play it in a sad way. You might be able to internalize that sadness and be hopeful about what's coming next. And so the output might be like, oh, I'm playing a sad, this is a really sad, dark blues. But when people listen to it, they feel hope. And so there are a lot of different ways to internalize the story in your mind, and you don't know how other people are going to feel it. But I think that words are definitely a key. If we listen to Billie Holiday sing a song, we're going to feel it a certain way. And then when I go to the piano, I'm going to play it a certain way. So knowing the words is something that they always tell you to do when you learn this music, when you learn standards, when you learn show tunes, anything like that. It's a real important part of it. But as instrumentalists, it doesn't define the way that we play. So it's possible to take a song that's sad and play it in a happy way. And a lot of times we try to find our own way to do something and turn something on its head. And as long as the story resonates with you as the musician, then you're going to have a pretty good chance of communicating it to somebody else. And experience really helps. When you have experience, I'm going to try this really sad song in a happy way, and then everyone gets up and leaves the club, not to do that again, So, figuring out how people react to the music that you play, I think can give you a lot of information as to how it's coming off. So that's a really important thing, to just get experience and say, every time I do this, people are so happy. Why is that? Because this is a happy song with happy lyrics, Yeah, you've been having your hand up for a while. Yeah, I think that this is something that happens quite often. So I'll travel around, and we'll all travel around and visit places and meet musicians for the first time. They said I had a masterclass here 2 days ago, and they said they had some musicians from the Herbie Hancock Institute, and they said, which instruments would you like? And I said, as a piano player, I'd love to play with the bass player and the drummer of the band and get to know them. And so it was something that is really interesting to me, to meet new musicians, and now they're part of my family. And I already told them before we even did the masterclass, when you come to New York, you're welcome in my gigs and my sessions, and you got to come sit in and just be a part of what we do. And that's my way of expanding, because I love meeting musicians from all over the place, especially different countries, with different cultures and different backgrounds. And I didn't know that you guys would be from different countries, and that just kind of also fed the way that I wanted to run this class, and just talk about what's meaningful to me in the moment, and also have a conversation with the people in the room, which is really important to me. I could have presented about anything and just stood up here and lectured, but I think that the best jazz, when it's played in the most effective manner, it's realizing who your audience is and trying to connect with the audience. And that's why I wanted to make it a conversation, to connect with you and to connect with them, and to show how powerful the music and the conversation can be when you're intentional about it, and when you infuse it with intention and love, and a greater awareness of maybe what you want for the world. And I think as artists, that's always what we're after. Like there's a phrase that my yoga teacher always says. He's like, and now bow to yourself and to something more than just yourself. And I think that's a really important thing, and also a great way to kind of leave this class, is that when you play this music, it's always about what you bring, but it's always about something more than just you. It's about who's listening, it's about where you come from, it's about the atmosphere, it's about the time and place in the world. And for me, it was awesome to connect with you guys and also everyone in the audience and streaming live, and just give a snapshot in time, a little portrait of how we feel and how we think we can make the world a better place through this music. And that's ultimately what it's about. And so we thank you for your time one more time, for these great musicians. And have a great Jazz Day.